Yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Football Tribe UG channel. Robert Kesakos is your usual suspect. Welcome back to yet another live broadcast on your favorite football channel. It's a pleasure to be back on this beautiful Monday morning, the 19th of January 2026, when I do come to you live from Kampala, Uganda. It's always a pleasure to be here with you. For those of you that were part of the conversation last night, thank you so much for making the time, as we did follow the updates from the finals of the Africa Cup of Nations there. To all our new community members, subscribers, thank you so much for choosing to be part of the Football Tribe UG community. Much appreciated for that. So here we are back at it. Let's go again, and we'll be, making sense of what did transpire at the Africa Cup of Nations finals 2025 that were there in Morocco yesterday. So, really very, very interesting stuff that came out of there. Plenty to discuss, perhaps for both the right and the wrong reasons. Depending on which way you look at things. But yeah, Senegal emerged as champions to win their second Africa Cup of Nations title. They are beating the host, Morocco, by a goal to nil to win that one. So we'll get to discuss that. We'll talk about Everton's result as they beat up against Aston Villa by a goal to nil, which turned out to be quite the result or the blessing that perhaps many Arsenal fans were praying for ahead of that game, while Newcastle could not find the breakthrough against Wolverhampton Wanderers, on the same day. That's in the Premier League. While Barcelona, things were never easy for them on Super Sunday as they played against Real Sociedad, because they ended up losing that game by 2-1. So we'll be looking at what the implications of that are on the Spanish La Liga table, that perhaps for which we all know that Real Madrid not too long ago part ways with Xabi Alonso. So we'll be talking about that as well. But before we get into the thick of it, allow me have my audios tested just to make sure everything does check out well before we proceed any further for the purposes of this particular broadcast. So as you can see, our headline, it says Senegal win chaotic AFCON final, and indeed it was chaotic. Now, to say it was chaotic, maybe that's a little bit of an injustice to the description of what it was entirely, but it does also meet the criteria of chaotic because of the scenes that we did witness at the tail end of the 90 minutes. For those of you that were part of that. So, like I said, those scenes were not pretty at all, not one bit, and nothing we would have hoped for, nothing we would have seen coming, nothing we would have expected. Some people, in my opinion, put the game in disrepute. I do not know whether they put the game in disrepute in the face of in the face of in the face of African football. So I do not want to think it was intended. I do not want to think that any of us would have seen that coming. I do not want us to be alarmed by the decisions, because the decision, if we are being honest, were not that alarming. They were not that alarming entirely. So yeah, basically that's it. Now let's get into the thick of the game itself and what transpired, or at least what I was able to witness on my part, because we could watch the same game and make different observations, and I want to respect that entirely. So I'm giving you what my impressions were about that. Now, the game gets played. Of course, it's a final. It's a highly contested fixture. Both teams want to win it. Both teams or both countries had only won the competition only once, and with Senegal having won it in 2021 when they beat Egypt 4-2 in the finals. for the 2021 edition. For those of you that are care to remember that, of course, the penalties proceeded. A goalless draw in normal time. That edition of 2021 was hosted by Cameroon. Initially, they were supposed to host the 2019 edition, which, due to logistical reasons and failure to prepare on time, it was moved to Egypt, and then Cameroon hosted the later edition, which Senegal won. So on the other side, you had the hosts who have not won the competition since 1976. In other words, majority of the everyday football fans that were out there in the stadium have never witnessed Morocco win the AFCON. And perhaps it's why it meant even more. I thought it would mean much more for Morocco because you're the host. You'd love to win it at home, But it was never the case. It was a closely competitive tie, a game in which not many chances were created, a game in which you felt like it sort of felt like it was everything that you'd expect from a final. One, that both teams treated each other with respect, that none of them wanted to lose the game, that they played with a bit of caution in certain moments of the game. But I thought Senegal started off the stronger side. They dominated certain aspects of the game from early on to try and signal their strength or their stance or their position on the African continent or in African football, which is really, really strong. They're one of the best teams. They are one of the strongest teams that we do have on the continent. And in the end, they dominated possession to the tune of 55% according to online statistics. There were 11 shots on goal from Senegal with 6 on target, while Morocco had 17 with only 5 on target. You felt that key moments in the game itself, in terms of goal scoring opportunities, fell far between. But I thought Morocco had the best chance in the 90 minutes to take the lead when El Kabi puts that chance wide. And for me, I thought that was the moment that would have turned the game on its head. But we never got that moment. I remember I told those that cared to listen last night that were part of the broadcast that I had been part of a TikTok live earlier on before the final. And my hope had been that we would not see a goalless 90 minutes because that then would be boring. And it turned out to be that way. It was a goalless 90 minutes. And we ended up going into extra time. But going into extra time itself is not the bad thing. I would have hoped maybe a 1-1 by the end of the 90 minutes, that by the time we get to extra time, at least we've seen some goals. Because as football fans, as much as we love everything that happens on the pitch, at the end of the day, we want to see the ball hit the back of the net. So that had not happened. But even though that had not happened, you still were alive for the moment that it is a final, and you felt that sort of aura, that environment. Those Moroccan fans were really, really behind their team. The Senegalese fans did no less, even though we know that the other ones outnumbered the others because they are the home team. Now, then we go through the 90 minutes of the game without any fuss whatsoever. I thought the referee had done well to handle the game really, really well. And for me, kudos to him. He handled the game in a mature manner. It's not to say that it had so many contentious moments that you would call him out for getting wrong in terms of his decision making. I do not think you'd put that claim on the game. So for him, it's the kind of game that you'd love to manage. How? Because tempers did not fly between players. There weren't too many cynical fouls. Majority of not majority, but some of what would pass as fouls were accidental, were accidental, so you couldn't really blame it on him, So he had the kind of game where it's a final, stakes are quite high, not just for Africa as a continent or for CAF as a confederation, as a governing body, but for the two countries that for which each of them wanted to win it, like I said. So you had that, and I thought he handled it really, really well. I do not remember a moment where I thought the referee was unjust in the opening 90 minutes until that moment of madness in added time of the 90 minutes. I don't remember, was it 7 or 8 minutes that had been added onto the clock? And Senegal get a corner kick, and the corner kick is floated in. Akraf Hakimi appears to have been fouled or pushed, and then he hits the turf. So once he goes down, the referee blows his whistle. He blows his whistle for a foul. When he blows his whistle for a foul, of course, play does not come to a stop instantly or instantaneously. The ball is headed onto the upright, goes back into play, and Senegal score from that rebound. When Senegal score, it felt like it was the breakthrough that we all wanted. Now, unfortunately for Senegal, by the time they score, the referee has already blown his whistle. So, whether they think he was unjust in the decision he made to award a foul against Akraf Hakimi, that's a whole different matter. But it has no bearing on the goal itself. Because once the referee blows his whistle, even though he was wrong in the decision that he makes to blow that whistle, whatever the resultant moment is there, does not count. Why does it not count? Because the whistle has already gone. So we play the whistle. You get my point. In other words, we cannot blame the referee for ruling out Senegal's goal because it was never a goal to begin with. Why was it not a goal? By the time the ball hits the back of the net, the final whistle has already gone. Sorry, the whistle for a foul has already gone. And I don't know. I wanted to try and see if I could find that particular moment. So, and this is in about what 90. This is in about I think the 92nd minute of the game, around that stoppage time, or quite very late in the game. So, because the referee, now, in my individual opinion, I did not think that was a foul on Akraf Hakimi. Why? It's a set piece play. There's a bit of pushing and shoving. It does happen all the time. Sometimes we do not like it, but it is what it is. It's a contact sport. I thought he went to the ground quite easily. I do not remember exactly the Senegalese player that pushed him, but he he hits the floor quite easily. And because the referee has seen it firsthand, he considers that a foul. He rules that as a foul. So, because he rules that as a foul, like I said, play cannot continue. But because it does not stop instantly, Senegal scored. At least they thought they had scored. So, in my humble opinion, it was not a foul to begin with. So, I think he's made the wrong decision to give a foul. But that happens all the time. Because if that happens in the middle of the park, Senegalese players protest it, and we carry on. The game continues. Referee has made a wrong call, or maybe has given away soft foul, because the argument is simple. I could also stand on the other side and argue for it and say it's a foul. Whether you think it's soft or not, that's not the issue. Would simply ask, lawyer manner, is it a foul? Yes or no? And then the moment you say yes, we run away with that, But I thought it was a soft foul to be given, as a push on Akraf Hakimi. Son of Soweto says it was a foul. I saw the report. Well, again, that's where we're going to have a difference of opinion. And I'm not saying it's not a foul. For me, I think it's quite very soft that Akraf Hakimi goes to the ground quite easily. The referee sees that in real time and blows his whistle, so he deems it as a foul. So play ought to be halted. But before it's halted, Senegal hit the ball to the upright, and it goes back into play, and then they score. So to them, they think they've had a goal ruled out. That's what they think. Or they've been denied a goal scoring opportunity, intentional. And the reason as to why partly they feel that is because there's some decisions that Morocco have had to get away with in terms of getting them on their side, even though ordinarily you wouldn't expect that they go their way. So for me, the referee was doing a great job until that moment. Now, that moment in itself is not what makes the game bad or puts the game in disrepute. Why? Because, like I said, whether you and I agree that it was a foul, that's a whole different story. Game has to carry on. Now, as the game carries on, in the 95th minute, Morocco have a corner kick. It's brought in, and I do not know why or on whose guidance or a lapse in judgment, but it does happen all the time with players. I'll call it a moment of madness. Malik Diouf literally hustles Brahim Diaz to the ground. And I'm thinking to myself, you need to do that? Because literally, we're in the final minutes of the game to send us to extra time. You need to do that, Malik Diouf? I did not think he needed to do that on Brahim Diaz. So, again, in quick reaction, the referee has not seen the incident, or maybe he has seen it and he does not deem it as, a foul, or he does not think it's strong enough to be a foul. And in fact, Senegalese players were happy to play on. Why? Because they themselves did not think maybe there was too much to read into that. Moroccan players are protesting. Brahim Diaz is in the face of the referee to say, I was fouled. That needs to be checked. Fast forward, VAR intervene. They look at it and they think the referee has something to review. And he summoned to the monitor. He went and reviewed the incident and ruled that it was a penalty. Now, whether you go to heaven, whether you go to Mars, whether you go to, I don't know what planet, for as long as football is played under the same rules, that is a penalty. As clear as broad daylight. That's a penalty. So, the referee awards a penalty. In protest, Senegalese players walk off the pitch at the command of their coach, head coach, Pape Thiaw. Now, Pape Thiaw put the game in disrepute. Pape Thiaw let emotions get the better of him. I cannot blame him for being emotional because it's his team. He supports it, he commands it, he's the coach. That's on one side. But for him to call for his players to walk off the pitch just because he does not agree with the decision that has been made, that was very wrong. And again, if it was a general consensus that it was not a foul to result to a penalty, I'd be on his side. But because it was a foul and that the penalty was awarded correctly, that's why I put it on him. He calls his players to walk off. Why? Because they are angry. And I was speaking about this last night, and I said, I do not think it's entirely the penalty that angers them that much, because if any of those Senegalese players, if any of the technical people, the technical bench of Senegal, review that incident and they are honest to themselves and they are objective, they know that that was a penalty, broad daylight, blatantly. And I did say that if the roles had been reversed, that we were on the opposite side of the pitch and a foul of that nature had been committed on a Sadio Mane, on an Iliman Ndiaye, on a Nicholas Jackson, on a Pape Gueye, on an Idris Gana Gueye, we'll be demanding for the same. We'll be calling for the referee to award Senegal a penalty. So I would want to give him a little bit of a benefit of doubt that perhaps he had not reviewed the incident. But I thought he did wrong to call his players to go off. So, like I said, game goes in protest. Senegalese players walk off. A few of them remained, including Sadio Mane. But before they go off, there's a lot of verbal exchange between the Senegalese players, their technical bench, that's to do with the substitutes and everything, with the Moroccans. And I could see the Moroccan coach try to intervene. I think he spoke to Ismail Sarr, trying to say, look here, do not walk away, maybe whatever the discussion was, and he did not yield. It was ugly for African football. It was ugly for football in general that we had to witness those incidents. But why did we witness them? It's because there's a lot at stake, and nobody wants to lose. Okay, let me read some of Soweto's comments. He says the two players pushed each other. Exactly. Now, if you say the two players pushed each other, so that means the foul could have been given either way. That on another hand, maybe Senegal would have been given a penalty because their player equally was pushed. The only difference is that it was thingy that went to the floor, Achraf Hakimi. Then you say, so the referee was right. He did a good job. The Moroccan tried to destabilize the game. The Senegalese coach did apologize after reviewing the footage. He said it was not good for football. The Moroccans organized the worst competition ever. It was not ugly. It is part of football. Now, when I say it's ugly, it doesn't mean to say it's not part of football. You and I will agree that we've seen some cynical fouls on the pitch and we say that's ugly or that's nasty. We're not saying the game is, or it's not part of the game. Just because it is part of the game does not make it an ugly, What's the example I'll give you? If you and I have a difference of opinion and we disagree, and then I abuse you or you abuse me, it doesn't make it right. But we understand, we know that it happens, that emotions get the better of people and they lose their heads and say certain things that ordinarily they shouldn't be saying. So basically, that's what I'm saying, that ordinarily as football fans or football in general, and for the image of football, we would not want to see those sins, we would not want to see players walk away in protest, So I appreciate the game for what it is, that a lot is at stake and emotions run high, tempers run high. But like I said, the Senegalese players and their head coach, Papa Theo, yes, he apologized, but just because he apologized does not mean we cannot discuss what happened. We're being dishonest in the moment. And that's what I said, that if those players are being honest enough to themselves, they will look at that incident and agree that the referee has made the right call, that it's a penalty. Now, for them, because of the earlier incident, that's what sends them wild, because they felt the referee had been unjust to them when he awarded that foul on Achraf Hakimi, that then denied them a goal scoring opportunity, an opportunity which they used to score, but the whistle had already gone. So, because of that moment, and it had happened just a few minutes after, that then they considered penalty, they felt the game is being unfair or unjustly officiated. Now, that's not my general consensus, or that's not my feeling about this game. I felt that everything had been going right. So the scenes that happened between Morocco being awarded a penalty and those players eventually returning back to the playing turf, which took the captaincy of Sadio Mane to run to the dressing room and call those players back, because he tried to call them and they were not yielding, until he runs to the dressing room and he calls them out, that they come out to resume the game. Now, we all know what happened at the resumption of the game. Penalties awarded. Brahim Diaz gets the ball. He tries to be smart. We're going to discuss the penalty in its essence. And the penalty served by Benjamin Mendy. You say football is emotional. The same incident happened when Milan played Marseille in the 1990s. I do not mind seeing them because I know that I'm not watching robots. Will you also condemn the incidents of Moroccans during the game? They sent people to steal the keeper's towel. They beat the guy who was sent to keep the towel. The toil. Do you mean the towel or the toil? The Moroccans behave badly. Now, again, once that moment happens, you see, like I said, everything looked in control until that moment. And we've seen the ugly scenes. Again, for me, it's an ugly scene whenever fans have to have exchanges in a stadium, when fans have to throw stuff on the pitch in protest of a decision or in disagreement of what is going on, or to show a certain bit of dissatisfaction. I find that ugly. It's not to say that we do not see it all the time. We've seen in the UEFA Champions League, for example, a player goes to take a corner kick and opposing fans pelt bottles or plastic bottles or those paper cups, disposable cups at that player, or a coin. You remember the incident of a fan throwing a yellow banana to Dani Alves. You remember? And then in tried to show that fan that it does no harm to him, he opens the banana, eats part of it, floats in the corner, and Barcelona score. So you remember the finals of the 2020 Euro 2020 that was played in 2021. You remember that England fans and the Italian fans fought. They fought. Again, emotions, people feeling that it's them that should have won, and everything that comes with football, or with being passionate about something in a competitive sport. So I understand all that. That it all happens, So you're saying I'm not talking about fans, I'm talking about other Moroccan players. Ball boys, security personnel were all harassing Mendy. Again, now, for the ball boys, I don't know if you can call it unprofessional, but again, we've seen these things before where, let's say, the home team is leading, and every time the ball goes out, the visiting team or the opponent's team wants to restart the game quickly, and the ball boys just delay to bring the ball, or they choose to hide the ball, or they check edges to pick that other ball out behind the billboards, and things like that. So we see that happen all the time. Now, for security personnel to get involved, that's different, because those ones should not have an impact whatsoever on the game. You get? For, let's say, players warming up to try and distract the opponent's goalkeeper, that's dark arts, typical dark arts, part of the game. It's up to the goalkeeper to keep your composure, to stay focused, because at the end of the day, they are trying to use every means possible to try and get an advantage. Like I said, the stakes were high. Every side wanted to win it. It's that simple. I'm not saying it's right, they should be doing it. I'm saying it's not like we've not seen it before, We would not love to see it, but unfortunately, I do not think any of the rules is going to, there's a rule that is going to come for the ball boy to say, you try to distract the goalkeeper. It's up to the goalkeeper to maintain his focus on the game. I do not think there's any ball boy that is going to be penalized for delaying to return a ball. And yet we know that is a delay tactic, if you understand what I mean. So everything they did in favor of Morocco was, for me, off the pitch, off the actual playing turf. If any of these things were being done by the presiding officer of the game, in this case the referee, I'd have much grievance. But anything that happens outside that box, in which the triangle in which they are playing, becomes background noise to the players that are on the pitch. If those Moroccan fans were throwing large balloons, maybe small balls and other things on the pitch to disrupt the game itself, that you bring the game to a halt at some point, I'd understand. I'd buy into that. But for everything that happened, now, again, look at this. Look at it this way. In everyday game, when the goalkeeper of any team is on the goal side where you have the opponent's fans, they're going to be making noise at you. They're going to be shouting all sorts of things at you. They're going to be trying to distract you. Why? Because they want their team to win. That happens every day. It happens every day. And as much as we would want to condemn that, it's not illegal. So these things of taking away Benjamin's towel or anything, I mean, he can play the game without a towel. It's not like a towel is a critical piece of the game. It's just a towel. Does it help him, dry and clean his gloves? Yes. He puts it there because he thinks he needs it. But we cannot, at the end of the day, we cannot sit here and make an argument that, let's say, if Senegal had lost, it would have been because, they took away his towel. No. The allegation or your submission that the guards, the stewards, got involved in a wrong manner, that I will condemn. But anything other than that, that's background noise. Like I said, some of those things we wouldn't want to see, but there are no rules against it. So you say you're being unjust by dismissing what led to those events. Do they have the right to beat the Senegalese players? The Senegalese player who was sent to keep the towel, who was sent to keep the towel and keep them away. Again, since when is it the role of a player to guard the towel? It's never. Again, I don't know if we will find middle ground or common ground on this, but trust me, it is not the role of a player to go and guard a towel, because they are not responsible for the security of the game. When they choose to go and do that, even the referee can remove them. For example, if the referee thinks that you're on the wrong side of the pitch during play, he can ask for you to be removed. That's why, even when players are warming up, they are being guided. Just because, let's say, the ball is on the opposite side of the pitch does not mean that you can go and jog back and forth in the 18 yards box of the other side of the pitch. Why? Because there are rules to guide that. So it's not the role of any player to go and guard a towel. Now, I understand if a player comes onto the pitch to try and defend the other player, but again, it's not entirely upon you. There's a reason as to why we have stewards, and they are responsible for security on the pitch. Now, whether you and I agree that they did a good job, that's a whole different matter. But let's not try to paint a picture that a player ought to be assigned, and it is right to go and, for example, no matter how ugly it gets in terms of opponents' fans shouting at a goalkeeper of the opposing side, you cannot say, "Oh, I have extra bodies on the bench. Let me send them at the back of the net to try and keep the concentration of our goalkeeper." You cannot do that because it will be against the rules of the game. But the fans, they're allowed to shout as much as they want. That's simply my point. Like I said, for some of these things, we wouldn't want to see them. We do not think they are right. And yet, there are no rules against them. I stand to be corrected if there are rules against them and they're not cautioned. There are rules against certain things, and that's why in the aftermath of games, you get federations penalized. You remember what happened, like I gave you reference to the finals of the 2020 Euro 2020 that was played in 2021. Those federations were punished because their fans misbehaved. They ended up in a barrel, a fight. So I'll leave that at that. So again, for me, if it had been any of the match officials to put the game in disrepute, to cause those incidents, I would be with you. But for anything that happens outside that, that's for the stewards to control. That's for the fourth official to look out for and call the referee and say, something has happened here. Maybe you need to bring the game to a stop so that we can get control of this situation. But we do not have that such incident. You've seen, particularly in cases where there have been racist comments, and the referee is summoned by the fourth official to say, this section of fans or that group are doing A, B, C, D. And then the referee speaks to, both managers on both sides and security people. The communication is made, and that is taken in the match report. And then federations or governing bodies take their course of action in the aftermath of that game. So CAF will take its action for whatever it deems was not right during the final of the game. But for me, I'm more focused on what happened on the pitch itself than what happened off of it. That's where my point is. And that's why I've been very specific in bringing out the two incidents that did happen on either side of the pitch. And you say the push on Akraf Hakimi, for you, that was a foul. I say it was a foul, but a soft one. That on another day, if the referee had not given that as a foul, I do not think we'll be having quorums about it. If it had happened at the center of the pitch, again, we would be saying it's a soft foul to award a free kick foul. That's simply what I'm saying. And then because the Senegalese players felt that they were denied a goal scoring opportunity in that moment, and then fast forward, they concede a penalty on this side. They felt, in their opinion, in their emotions at the moment, that the game was being unjustly presided over. But was that the overall consensus? I, for one, I remember making this comment last night. Again, I did say that it's going to be very unfortunate for the referee because he may not get another high-stakes game because of what happened yesterday. Now, it's not entirely on him. And the decision that he gives to Morocco is not what should cost him bigger games going forward. Because in his absolute mind, he felt that was a foul. So he blew the whistle. So by the time Senegal, again, I've seen some people saying Senegal's goal was ruled out. No, it wasn't ruled out. When you put that statement that way, it's misleading. It's misleading in context. Because by the time the goal is scored, the referee has already blown his whistle. It's not like Senegal scored, and then he blows the whistle to say there was a foul earlier on here. In any case, perhaps that he would have even been summoned, maybe to the VR to review the incident, if his other aiding aides had felt that maybe that was not a foul. So that wasn't the case. So, and then we know what happened quickly there. you know, penalties awarded. Like I said, if we are all being objective enough, we'll agree that it was a foul and it was a penalty. So you say, do they have the right to beat? No, nobody has the right to beat anyone, whether you agree or disagree with them. Nobody has the right to beat anyone. I'm not talking about fans. I'm talking about the disrespect of the game by those Philippine Arabs. Again, I'm not saying that the things you're saying are wrong, son of Soweto. No. My point is they happened off the playing turf, and that if they needed the intervention of the referee, he would have been summoned. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to review what happens in the finals of the Copa de Libertadores, but in some cases, they've had to move those games overseas just to try and mitigate what happens in the Copa de Libertadores finals or games. Why? Because they are messy, they are chaotic. Rival fans fight. Rival fans fight. Now, when rival fans fight, it's not a scene we want to see. It's ugly. It's bad for the game. But for as long as the referee is managing affairs the right way on the playing turf, that's where our focus is. That the referee has not done anything to put the game in disrepute. And in this particular case, I did not think he did. Now, like I said, in my submission last night, the feeling in the moment of it was that because that felt an unjust decision against Senegal before they score, a lot of people would have would think the referee was being biased against Senegal. That's what it felt like. But if we are being candid and honest, like I said, those things happen all the time. How many times have we seen a corner kick not awarded and it's been awarded as a goal kick? That means the referee has made the wrong call. It happens. Is it right? No, but it happens. Was that a soft foul? In my opinion, it was a soft foul to award. But like for you insist, it's a foul anyway. So you agree that the referee was right to give it as a foul. But Senegalese fans are not going to feel that way. Not one bit. That's not how they're going to feel. You know? So fast forward anyways. We'll leave that debate at that. Brahim Diaz picks up the ball. Eventually, players have returned, the Senegalese players. Of course, it took a bit of time. Benjamin Mendy gets given a yellow card. I do not know particularly for what incident. Was it for dissent? Was it something he said to the referee? I do not know, but he gets awarded a yellow card. Brahim Diaz steps up, takes the penalty, tries to be smart, takes a penanka. Now, I remember we were having a chat with Pedri last night. He's a Barcelona fan from Spain who was following the events of the game. And we could not come to an absolute conclusion on whether Brahim Diaz missed the penalty intentionally to sort of try and balance the scales because of what had happened. Two, with Pedri, we floated a theory based on his submission that perhaps there had been a consensus amongst the Moroccan players and perhaps their manager, I don't know who, for them to miss that penalty to bring back Cam in the game. And then on the other side, we had arguments that he missed a penalty genuinely because he tried to be smart and do a penanka. Now, Sergio Kun Aguero, during one of the COVID seasons, tried a penanka on Benjamin Mendy. Man City, I think, were leading Chelsea by a goal to nil. And he corrected that one. And when you review the penalty, he does not make that much of a move once Brahim Diaz takes the penalty, and that's why he's able to save it. So, anyway, he serves the penalty, and the game plays on. Quickly, we go, final whistles blown, we go into extra time, and Papa Gueye scores in the 4th minute of extra time, or the 94th minute, whichever way you want to describe it. And by the way, a very, very brilliant goal. From there on, you felt that Morocco was scrapping through the game. In fact, Senegal had the opportunity to score to make it 2-0 through Cherif Ndiaye, but that chance was saved by Yassine Bono. And even on the rebound, Cherif Ndiaye gets that shot off target or puts it wide simply because Yassine Bono put his hand to it to try and to divert the direction of the ball or to put it out a little bit out of position for Cherif Ndiaye. Shot 12. But at the end of the day, it was Pape Gue's 94th minute strike that turned out to be the match winner. I remember we were following, the game, and BBC had put up a headline, BBC Sport. They had put up a headline which was very unjust in describing the game. And I remember calling them out for it, So Malik Diouf will know that that was a foul. And like you said, Pape Theo himself, he went on to apologize. There was an exchange during, the exchange happened as early as the referee is summoned to the monitor. Before he gets summoned to the monitor, everything is still calm, But because Mendy serves that penalty, the whole situation changes. If Brahim Diaz scores that penalty, we would be having a different conversation. Not perhaps in the terms of the final result, but we'll be here. Perhaps some people will be out there arguing of how unjust Senegal would have been treated. But like I said, you and I can agree that that was a blatant penalty. Any day. Any day. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. But so that turned out to be the match-winning goal, and congratulations, Team Senegal, on winning the your second Africa Cup of Nations accolade. The first, like I said, coming in 2021. Senegal were worthy winners. That ball that kisses the inside of the crossbar from Pape Gueye, shot 26, hits the back of the net, and that was it. That was it. In terms of missed opportunities, like I said, Cherif Ndiaye missed that opportunity to make it 2-0. Earlier on in the first half, I think it was Ilman Ndiaye who had a missed chance. El Kabi had a missed opportunity, and those kinds of things. So for me, that's a summary, that's a report of the game. It will go on to be talked about much. Was it for the right reasons, or will it be talked about much or remembered much for the right reasons or for the wrong reasons? Again, that's for you to decide, But you'll say it was a contentious final. Some people will try to make it about the referee. I do not think it should be about the referee, So that for me, that's it, Jinjakwez Ngambo Ndala from the Democratic Republic of Congo was the center referee, and and I remember even I myself, in his assessment of him, at some point, I got it wrong. I was wrong about it. But if we are being fair and honest, I think he did well. I think he did well, But some of us or some people came into watching that final with their own prejudices about Morocco because there are incidents where fouls had not been awarded against them. Particularly when we go back to the quarterfinal, we'll agree that the foul on Brani Mbeumo, that should have been a penalty. against Tanzania. They should have considered a penalty, and yet they didn't. So, but it is football. That's it. We're accustomed to sometimes you get certain decisions, sometimes you do not get them. Sometimes you're not getting those decisions, or decisions not going against you work in your favor, and on another day you'll be aggrieved against by similar incidents. And that's why I keep saying we must work to have a fair game across sport. And do you know why we constantly say the Premier League has bad officiating? It's because of the inconsistencies that happen in their game when it comes to the officiating of the game that bring their game in disrepute. Because what is a foul on one day, it's not a foul on another day. So I thought the usage of VAR in this campaign was a bit of a downgrade from the rating at which it was in the previous campaign. That was 2023, which was played in 2024. So for me, that's my overall assessment of the game. Congratulations to the Lions of Teranga. Sadio Mane was awarded, I think, best player of the tournament. And was he deserved? I thought maybe because they won, then it goes to say that he deserved. But I thought, for me, if you were to ask me, I think I would put Brahim Diaz right up there in terms of players of the tournament. In as far as things go, I thought anyway, so for me, I thought Brahim Diaz was the best player of the tournament, in my opinion. But because he was not a part of the winning side, I understand him not being awarded that accolade, But overall, I thought Morocco gave us a good tournament. They organized a good tournament. The scenes from Dakar in Senegal and all other parts of Senegal as they watched their team triumph were beautiful to see. That's the beauty of the game, Congratulations to Papa Theo, another local coach who guided his side to the triumph. I think Algeria had a local coach when they won it in 2019. We know that Aliou Cisse guided Morocco to the accolade in 2021. A local coach, 2023, Emas Faye, who was on as interim at the AFCON, did wonders. Another local coach, getting the success. So yeah, I think it's all good. It's all good in that regard. Yassine Bono voted best goalkeeper of the tournament. No qualms whatsoever. I can't argue against that. Well deserved for him. Morocco won the fair play team of the tournament. Again, I can't disagree with that. They made it to the final. Brahim Diaz, top scorer with 5 goals. Well deserved. Man of the competition, like I said, Sadio Mane. Even though I thought Brahim Diaz was the better player for me overall. So yeah, congratulations to the winners. I don't know who was voted the young player of the tournament, because in the last outing it was Ivory Coast's Simon Adingra that won, young player of the tournament. So this time around, I don't know. I think Papethio gets manager of the tournament, So anyways, I'll leave that at that. I was looking at my feed from CAF Online to see if I could find who the young player of the tournament was. But I just can't seem to put my finger on who that player was. If any of you has the name on their fingertips, please put them down in the comment section. Just put them in the comment section and hope. Okay, maybe some final comments. Hi, Pedri. Good morning. Senegalese coach Papethio on the late penalty controversy. He said, I didn't appreciate at all that I told my players to leave the field. I apologize for football. After reflection, I had them come back. Sometimes you can react in the heat of the moment, but we accept the referee's mistakes. We offer our apologies to football. What mistakes? What mistakes is he calling about? If he's talking about the penalty, not a mistake, blatant penalty. If he's talking about the earlier decision, that's where I would say, yeah, that was a mistake. But so, anyways, it is what it is. I don't know. Um, a lot of people, based on online commentary, seem to think that the game was trying to be predetermined off the pitch. And you remember my earlier submission about the sort of school of thought that maybe Brahim Diaz was advised to miss the penalty. Somebody has a similar comment here. He says, I think Sadio Mane was spoken to about a mutual decision for Brahim Diaz to intentionally miss the penalty. At the AFCON final between Morocco and Senegal, he agreed, called Mendy and the other players off the pitch, and Brahim Diaz even played a penanka. It's clear that's his feeling. He had earlier on said, I'm sure this is a mutual understanding for Brahim Diaz to intentionally miss his penalty to ease the tension at the AFCON finals between Senegal and Morocco due to a bad referee's decision. It's clear. I do not know, again, I do not know what people term as a bad referee's decision in that moment. If people are of the argument that it's a bad referee's decision in that moment for the penalty, I will disagree. I'll disagree all day. Okay. Ben Jacob says extraordinary scenes as Senegal manager Pape Theo calls his players off the field in the AFCON final after Morocco awarded an injury time penalty after El Haj Malik Diouf was judged to have pulled down Brahim Diaz, which was correct. It followed a disallowed Ismail Sarr goal as Abdoulaye Sheikh was deemed to have pushed Akraf Hakimi in the build-up, a soft decision, and buffering referee Ginger Quez Ndala blew his whistle before the goal went in, meaning no VAR check. Now, exactly, that's the moment that a lot of people will think that the referee put the game in disrepute or had made an unjust decision. But all during across the entire game, everything was okay. And again, this is what I was explaining, that because and again, it's a soft decision. At least I'm not the only one who feels so, that it was a soft decision to give, even though others will justify and say it was a foul. So VAR could not intervene because before Ismail Sarr scores, the referee had already blown his whistle. So we could not have that incident reviewed. So I think that's what, like I said, that is what angered those those Senegalese players when they concede a penalty on the other end. Again, this speaks to Son of Soweto's earlier comments about the towel. I say this one is called Oimizi, says Big shout out to Senegal's reserve goalkeeper, Jovan Diouf, who was active all throughout the game, handing Edward Mendy sorry, at some point I called him Benjamin Mendy, but it's Edward Mendy, his towel, and fighting off ball boys and Moroccan players, a real soldier there. So that's to speak to the incident. Anyways, away from the shenanigans of the Africa Cup of Nations finals. One, Newcastle shared the spoils in a goalless draw in the Premier League yesterday. Again, I do not agree that those players should have been at the back of the goal or besides the goal. You know, so anyways, Newcastle could not find the breakthrough against Wolverhampton Wanderers, so that game finished goalless. Then Everton, through a 59th minute goal by Thornberry, was enough to condemn a defeat against Aston Villa. Aston Villa had been unbeaten at home in 11 consecutive games where they had won. And yeah, Everton became the first team, I think, to beat them for the first time since August. The last team to beat them at home might have been Crystal Palace, who beat them by 3-0. I stand to be corrected, but I think it's one of the teams that I went to Villa Park and collect all 3 points. So, what was his name? What's his name? Unai Emery appeared to be quite very, very angry with the results, but it is what it is because he knows it was a missed opportunity for Aston Villa to move second on the Premier League table, but also to close the gap on Arsenal, who now lead the table with that 7 points. We'll get to speak maybe about Arsenal. I don't know when, but Arsenal did not do themselves any favors in failing to win that game against Nottingham Forest. But in any case, the game against Everton's win against Aston Villa should tell you how uneasy a game can be in the Premier League. That even they too failed to capitalize on that, you know. But whatever happened. So yeah, a lot of Arsenal fans are in consensus that they've missed 2 golden opportunities to extend their lead at the summit of the Premier League table with their goalless draw against Liverpool and a goalless draw now against Nottingham Forest. That means for 2 consecutive games they've not scored a goal. That's not the kind of scene you would want to see from a champion. That's not the kind of message you send if you want to be a Premier League champion. You don't go 2 consecutive games without scoring, and it's not like we're talking about that we are playing teams in the top 4 or top half of the table. We're talking about one team that was 4th that you played, and then you have another team that is 17th on the Premier League log, and you can't win a game of football against them. Now, it's easier than that, but it speaks to the struggles that Arsenal have had. You remember their 2-1 victory against Wolverhampton Wanderers. Very unconvincing victory. Nonetheless, it was a victory. And for them to, drop points, 2 precious points against Nottingham Forest, I thought that in itself was not good at all. Some missed chances there from the likes of Gabriel Martinelli. So they'll know that it's a missed opportunity for them to, get ahead in as far as accumulating more points. Because for Arsenal to feel any form of comfort that they are in the driving seat of winning this Premier League title or possibly going on to win it will be when they are 10, 15 points ahead. That is what I would qualify for healthy. But right now, you feel that they are playing under a bit of pressure, and the pressure is there because every fixture they look at and know. And unfortunately for them, their next fixture in the Premier League will have even more pressure and tension around it Why? Because it's against Manchester United. Manchester United were under a new manager, interim Michael Carrick, who, after 3 days of working with the boys, managed to guide them to a 2-0 victory against Manchester City, and could have been more goals in there, but it wasn't. And so they'll have a lot to do in that game. They'll have to prove themselves. But their form of 2 consecutive draws does not look pretty. Prior to that, Man City themselves had 3 consecutive draws and now a loss. Aston Villa, in the last 5 games, they've lost 2 games and drawn 1. When you look at Liverpool, they've drawn 4 consecutive games. Prior to the Manchester United victory against Man City, they had drawn 3 consecutive games. So it's been a bit of an odd moment in as far as the Premier League table is concerned, or results have come. But Arsenal do pride themselves in having that, that 7-point lead. Now, match day 23 will happen in the manner that by the time Arsenal get to play Man United, Man City will have already played, and Aston Villa will have already played. Aston Villa have a trip to St. James's Park where they'll play Newcastle, while Manchester City will be at home against Wolverhampton Wanderers, a game that I do suspect that they will win. So perhaps by the time Arsenal get to play Man United, Man City could have already reduced that 7-point deficit, to a mere 4 points. So we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, Real Sociedad beat Barcelona by 2-1. Mikel Oyarzabal squad, as well as Guedes, while Marcus Rashford squad, what was an equalizer at the time, but only turned out to be a mere consolation, as Barcelona conceded as soon as they had scored, literally, because they scored in the 70th minute and then conceded in the 71st. Sola was given a red card, so Real Sociedad finished that game with a manless, but nonetheless, they managed to hold out for victory against Barcelona. That means, following Real Madrid's win at the weekend, they are now just a point behind Barcelona. And for me, I do not know why. It will still go to question as to what was the school of thought, what was the basis of judgment for Real Madrid to part ways with Xabi Alonso. But that will all be history, because it's now Alvaro Abiola who is in charge as an interim head coach at Real Madrid, and he kicked off his tenure with a victory on Saturday, which was a 2-0 victory for Real Madrid against Levante. And subsequently, he will have to prove himself because next week UEFA Champions League action does return, and they do have a home game against Monaco. So that will be coming our way. I know for a fact that Arsenal will be making the trip to Italy to play Inter Milan on Tuesday. That's one of the biggest games of match day 7 of the UEFA Champions League. Tottenham will be at home against Dortmund. I do not see how Tottenham win that game. They're so poor lately, and not just lately, but also at home. Liverpool will be up against Olympique Marseille. Barcelona have an easy game against Slavia Praha that will come on Wednesday. We'll find time and discuss all that in due course. But otherwise, I want to wish you a blessed Monday, a blessed new week, and I wish you well. Thank you so much, Pedri and Son of Soweto, for the engagement we've just had. I know Soweto was quite very vocal of what happened off the pitch in regards to those incidents that involved the Senegalese substitute goalkeeper fighting for fighting for Edouard Mendy's towel with those Senegalese players, and the steward, like I said, what happened was not right, but for everything that happened off of the pitch, if the referee is not called to be alerted to what is happening off the pitch, I do not think it's anything that should concern him. I do not think it should steal his concentration away from the game. And maybe we can question why the fourth official did not try to intervene and call or alert the referee to those incidents, to even chase away those Moroccan players, even the Senegalese substitute goalkeeper from being in that position. But I saw the incidents of those the ball boys trying to intervene. It's not their role. It's not their place to be part of that. But yeah, those are shenanigans of the game. And like I said, for as long as what happens is not within the rectangular uh, of the pitch, that then we have no reason to think that the referee is unjust, because that's completely happening away from him, you know. So, anyways, that's it from me. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you guys next time. Meanwhile, Uganda, or the Royal Moroccan Federation, officially handed over the CAFA duties to the next AFCON hosts, which is Pamoja Bid. That's Tanzania, Kenya, and Uganda. I saw somebody, a journalist, asking Patrice Motsepe, or Dr. Patrice Motsepe, about the quality of infrastructure within the three East African nations, saying it takes days for people to transit from one country to another due to poor road network and things like that. Um, I'll say this. I do not think Motsepe is in control of the infrastructure when it comes to the road network of the three countries. But let's be honest, I do not think there's any perfect African country. In terms of infrastructure, we know that some are miles apart better than others. The likes of South Africa, Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, a good part of Nigeria, and all those big economies, in terms of their infrastructure, they are better than others, and miles apart, by the way. But it's not to say that that infrastructure cannot be worked on. I mean, we still have a whole year to the next edition, and a lot can happen in the space of a year in terms of committing resources to improve or to work on those things that are imperfect. I know that an airport is being built is it Kabare or Hoima? It's another airport. The airstrips that Uganda can improve on to ease in transit of players from one district to another. We have Kasese airstrip, we have Gulu, we have, I think, Lira could be having. Speaking of Lira, the John Akbwa Stadium is under construction. In Hoima, the Hoima City Stadium is done. Renovations on Nambole Stadium are continue. I don't know if they're in third phase, fourth phase, whatever the case is, So yeah, have a blessed day, and we'll catch up again next time. Bye-bye for now.